I'm proud of my school. I tell people, oh, I go to Buckley. I'm like, oh, wow, you go to Buckley? That's really cool.
10 minutes into the open house, my husband and I looked at each other and said, we're staying. This is the place for us.
Buckley is a very special school, and it's very special because the moment you walk through the door here, you honestly feel like you're coming home.
The reason is that we really felt there was a mission to the place, that there was purpose to it.
You know, when people ask me what it's like to be the headmaster of Buckley, I just have to tell them that I've got the best job in the world. I have the privilege of being part of our students' journey throughout these critical and wonderful early years of their lives. I get to experience the breadth and the depth of the learning that occurs every day here and not just in the classroom. And I get to feel the joy that permeates our community. Honestly, there's nothing else I'd rather do and nowhere else I'd rather be.
Hello everyone, we are Group 3 and we are going to talk about the 10 million capital campaign gift feasibility study of Buckley Country Day School. And so first I'm gonna do the introduction of the school. So Buckley Country Day School is a private, mission-driven, independent co-educational day school, and it was founded in 1923. Buckley opened the door and of its first building in Great Neck of class of 23 children. And in 1955, as the school's enrollment continued to increase, the school moved to its current location in village of North Hill on the north shore of Long Island. And the mission of Buckley is providing a superior elementary education to an intellectually capable and diverse student body. And Buckley provides a foundation that enables our students to achieve their full potential and excel as educated, ethical, and self-confident individuals. And the core value of Buckley is that Buckley believes in fostering integrity, hard work, kindness, personal and social responsibility, and mutual respect in all our students. And there are some, when we do our education, we are focusing on the 5 C's to educate our students, which are critical thinking, creativity, communication, and collaboration and characters. And as the improvement of the achievement of our reputation, Buckley is shown by those numbers I showed on the PowerPoint. So for example, 85% of our faculties are with advanced degrees, and the average years of teaching experience is 15 years, and 85 of our students in grades 5 to 8 score in the 95th percentile or above in math and verbal skills, and they are qualifying of Johns Hopkins citywide. And there are also other those kind of numbers you can find shows our achievement on our official website, so you can check on our website. And there are 2 benchmarking. I find that one of them is Birch Family Services, which is a team of more than 3,000 teachers and therapists, social workers, psychologists, and so they have more teachers than we are, and they are like a more large organization. And besides provide finance education, they also do help the children's families to overcome the life obstacles. And for the Sunnyside Community Services, they provide educational program for not only the children but also the elder people. So they have a very complete educational system for the people in all ages. And for the size of the school, we are serving 355 students, and we have 85 faculties and staff, and we provide our education for both culturally and physically. We have languages taught of 4 language required PK8, include Mandarin, Spanish, and French. And also we have a athletics program, so we can taught our students to be educated and ethical and self-confident individuals. And to talk about our headmasters, so our headmasters Dr. Jewell was named Berkeley's 12th headmasters in 2001, and Dr. Jewell has more than 20 years of experience in independent education at school. And in 1995, Dr. Jewell was awarded a King Justin Fellowship at Teachers College, Columbia University, where he also earned the master's degree in educational administration. And before joining Buckley Community, he was the head of upper school at St. Hilda and St. Hugh in Manhattan. And because he was very supportive of previous capital projects, so he ready to take on multi-year campaign. And for the board of trustees, we currently have 17 members, and those members take an active role in supporting the school and the headmaster. And besides that, the board of trustees is also responsible for the academic and the financial health of the institution, and the selection of the headmaster, and the physical plan and the long-range planning, holding in trust the school present and its future. And next, Stephanie will talk about more about the 10 million campaign. So that's it for my part.
Thanks, Insu. So I'm going to be talking about the campaign a little bit. We're looking to raise $10 million over the course of 10 years to expand our dining facilities, build 6 new classrooms, and also expand and improve our parking areas so that it is safer and more convenient for everyone who comes to campus, students, parents, faculty, and all of our admissions visitors that are looking at the school and kind of deciding if they want to go here or not. So if you can see my mouse on the screen, this is our auditorium here. And one of the challenges that we're facing right now is that a lot of events happen in our auditorium on Friday afternoons, right after lower school lunch. Unfortunately, right now we don't have a clear path for our parents to get from the lobby, which is located down this hallway right here, to the auditorium without walking through lower school lunch. Not the best way to start your visit to Buckley. So we're looking at changing that walkway. We also want to improve our instructional space and expand and get some new classrooms. Right now, our music faculty and our language faculty are kind of sharing spaces. They're switching back and forth. We have some music programs that take place in the auditorium, in a gym, in kind of different places around school. So we want to give them a dedicated facility where they can just stay and make that room their home, their classroom. So the solution to our space needs is to expand the dining room. Right now, again, if you look at my mouse, right here we have a playground at the moment. It's sort of an inner courtyard open area. We've got some trees in there, and that's what the nursery students down here use. We're going to be building them another playground. That's a separate project, not involved in this project at all. But we're going to lose that playground, dig down, and we're also going to build up. When we dig down, we're going to gain 3 classrooms downstairs. We're going to gain 3 classrooms upstairs at the top level. And then in the middle, we're going to have this dining room area. So our dining room is going to expand. So we're going to have all of this space for upper and lower school. Our early childhood students are going to be able to eat in this area right here, which is going to free up another space on campus. And we're also going to have this beautiful walkway, this passage here, so that when people come in, they're taking a tour of the school, they need to get from this main hallway over here to the rest of the upper school, which leads through these doors. You're not going to have to walk through the dining room, which is going to be much more convenient. So that's the first part of our project. The second part of the project is expanded parking and improving our campus safety. So right now, again, if you follow my mouse, we've got some parking for faculty over here in the back of the school. We also have parking right along here in the front of the school, and that's it. When we have a big event on campus, like the Christmas pageant, as I mentioned, or our Hanukkah assembly, or moving up day at the end of the year that all of the parents come to, we actually have to end up parking people on the soccer field, which is right here. Not ideal. So we're looking at expanding our parking spaces. We purchased a piece of land a couple of years ago in our most recent capital campaign in 2014, and that allows us to use this piece of land over here to build more parking spots. We're looking at adding an additional 265 parking spots, which should accommodate our community wonderfully. And we're also adding in a new drop-off circle. So right now, again, if you follow my mouse, we have a bus circle over here on the side. And that's where people can just drop off their kids. They don't have to get out of the car, they just walk right into school. So we're kind of adding one of those over here as well to avoid having people drive down to this circle to drop off and just kind of eliminate the traffic in that middle area here. Our students walk from the building over to the soccer field to get to PE classes, to the tennis courts, and then also over to these fields over here. So really just reducing the amount of traffic and making parking a lot more convenient for our parents, faculty, for all of our stakeholders who are going to be coming to campus, which is great. So we've already begun the process. We've announced our plans to the community. This is a screenshot from our alumni magazine, The Spotlight. So people are already interested. They're figuring out what we're doing. We're starting a little buzz. And we're in planning and evaluation mode, which is what this project is so great for, is that we are evaluating our donors to find out how we are going to reach that goal of $10 million. And can we do it? So Melody is going to be talking about kind of the different KPIs that we're going to be going over and that we've evaluated in our data set. We've looked at 5 years of annual fund campaigns and also the last 2 capital campaigns from 2012 and 2014. So we're going to be looking at what characteristics do our donors share, especially our major donors. Are there things that they have in common that might help us pick out other major donors that are currently hidden for us right now, or they haven't made a major gift yet? We're looking at how recently and how frequently did donors give and what size were those gifts. So again, going back to our fundraising metrics and KPIs, recency, frequency, and money or amount. And then what do we project as the capacity of future families? We get about 30 new families every year. 25% of those are on some form of financial aid, but that leaves 75% of families who may be willing to make a gift, and potentially 10% of those who may be willing to make a major gift or a naming gift. And over 10 years, we're going to see 10 new crops of new families coming in, which is great. And then finally, what trends can we identify, or what movements in the culture of giving at Buckley can we find in our giving data? So Melody's going to be discussing all of these KPIs a little bit more in depth, so I'm going to turn it over to her.
Thank you, Stephanie. So here we're looking at our donor population. Our combined giving from 2012 and 2014 from our trustees, while they were only just a little bit over 10% of our donor population, contributed over a third of gifts. Parents representing about 50% of the population, well over a third of the gifts. Alumni, while they give it the same ratios roughly to parents, they represented under 20% of all gifts. And other donors, Buckley employees, corporate matching gift organizations, foundations, Friends of Buckley, grandparents, vendors, contributed under 10% of the total revenues and gifts in 2012 and in 2014's capital campaign. So fast forward to today. The total annual fund donations in 2017 were $458,000, 46% being the total number of donors that contributed to the 2017 annual fund. 19% of that population came from trustees, 43% of the gifts came from parents, alumni stayed roughly the same at 7%, and other donors did increase. So what did that look like in terms of our KPIs? Well, new donors, we had a 7% increase in new donors. There were 66 new donors in total. 43 of those new donors were present parents, and their donation totals were about $50,000. That represents 10% of our total donations, roughly about being 200 on average, with the most frequent donation being $100. We also recaptured 16% of our previous donors. That was 109 recaptured donors. That was $96,000 in revenue. 61% of those donations were between $100 to $500. So we're looking at our recaptured donors capacity. And our highest donations actually came from 3 alumni donors. The alumni totals were about half of the recaptured donor donations. So this was very interesting to see some of these new things that came from our recaptured donors. We only had about 30% retention for our donors. 362,000 of those dollars came from parents. That's roughly 80% of our total revenues of 2017. 60% of the donations were under $1,000. So we're also looking at our capacity for our retained donors. But there is some bad news with our retained donors over the last 3 years, which we need to address moving forward with our KPIs. 170 donors over the past 3 years have had a downward trend. So we've had 170 donors who have donated consistently, but between 2016 and 2017, we're looking at roughly $69,000 less in gifts. So we need to see what's going on with our retained donors and how we can maintain and even increase their donations as they stay with us. We also lost 28% of our donors in 2017. We talked about this in class, how it's great to acquire some new donors, keep some of your donors, but we saw even our donors that we've retained are going down in revenue. And in addition, we lost 28% of our donors. That's about $85,000 in potential lost revenues. That would have been 18% of our current total revenues. So we, somewhere along the way, didn't realize we had some donors at risk. They may have lapsed, and then we completely lost these donors. So we need to go back and see what's going on with these populations. Also, not just last year, but 40% of our donor pool has not made a contribution in 2 or more years. So we're looking at this downward trend of lost donors from year to year. In 2015, that equals $109,000 that could have potentially been donated. 2014, 63,000, 2013, 77,000. So we are having a little bit of a slip in our donor retention. So what does this mean? Coco is going to discuss what resources Buckley will need to address the data and some of the things that are going on with our donors.
So next, I'm going to talk about the resources Buckley will need to gather such data. So the first one, of course, is the most important one, is our data resources. So when it comes to determine how efficient our nonprofit raises monies, there's nothing quite as helpful as a large pool of accurate, relevant fundraising performance indicators that can objectively show you exactly how well you are doing. In addition, find appropriate and reliable KPIs for your own organizations and make them useful to evaluate the fundraising strategies or performance is also very important. After examining the KPIs in the last section, we can easily see that even though there are some new donors coming to Buckley, the donor loss becomes a very serious problem. So Buckley has to focus on donor relationships in the future. And the second resources we use is human resources. So there are two perspectives when we use human resources. Internally, our development team takes the indispensable responsibilities to find the potential donors. It is their duty to gather all donors' data at the first place. Who is the donor? How old is she? How much they donate? Why they donate? And what are some relationships here? In addition, our board members are also good resources. Their outside social relationships bring us a large portion of donations, which connect to our external human resources. Externally, our donors are especially current parents, alumni, friends, parents of Buckley. They made an outstanding donation for us, along with other support resources. The next one is our technology resources. So firstly, of course, is our donor database. So a good donor or fundraising database should help you track what you're doing and what you received. It should track your donations, your constitutes, and who attend the events you put on. It also helps you to monitor and forecast performance and help you focus your work and work more strategically. And the next one is our communication tools. So the world is becoming mobile now. So in order to keep up with necessary to coordinate donors with our increasing digital world, Buckley are deeply investing in communication tools, such as our social medias, our web design, the public broadcasting, local newspapers, even email marketings, and other digital strategies. So finally, who cares? So who will be involved in the communication of the data outcome and at what level? I will say definitely our development team, our finance team, and our CEO and board of trustees. They want to know how efficient is our communication strategies, how much impact Berkeley has made on social and nonprofit work. What are some weaknesses we can improve in the future? At the meantime, our donor care our data outcome as well. They will want to know how healthy is our organization. What are some long-term social impact they can make for Berkeley, and how Berkeley can make lasting changes in the future. Next, I will pass to Brianna to talk about the make and act on the decision.
Thanks, Coco. So we are now at the conclusion portion of the presentation, where we are going to talk through a few options that we would like to present to Buckley to raise the 10 million, looking through some alternatives, analyzing our current donor base and seeing if we actually have the capacity to raise the 10 million, and then offering our next step forward or best way to go about raising the 10 million. So based off of the data that is presented today, we are able to confidently say that there's 3 options for Buckley to take. Raising 10 million in 10 years in one campaign, raising 10 million in 2 campaigns over 5 years each with a year in between, or raising 10 million in essentially 13 years in 3 campaigns with a year in between each campaign. So while looking or analyzing what these options were, we kept in mind, what does this look like gift-wise for us to hit the 10 million goal? And do we have the donors and constituents in our donor base and looking into the future to really support those pledges needed to hit the 10 million goal? To help us with this analysis, we created a gift table that walks through our projection of how many gifts we would need to hit that 10 million goal, noting that we would need at least 2 pledges of $1 million each to help support this gaining this capital. And as Melody talked to in her prior section, our KPIs aren't looking that great right now, and the donor performance is a bit on the decline. So we really want to keep that in mind as Buckley is moving forward with this campaign, and what are some alternatives to engaging our constituents to build excitement around this campaign. Now, Buckley has already announced the campaign in their 2018 newsletter, so the cat is out of the bag, but there are ways that Buckley can engage their constituents that are alternatives to how they currently work with their donor base. And that could be having cocktail parties to where they're talking about this capital campaign to engage excitement. It could be a simple survey where we're asking our constituents if they would be willing to give, what their giving preference would be, or what's holding them back from giving if they're not willing to give. Alternatively, looking at the options that break up the campaigns, there is time within that year in between campaigns to get feedback from our constituents to find out if we are being successful, if they're willing to give it the campaign to follow, or really what are they looking for to be more engaged in the pledges to come. Additionally, there are some donors of interest that I think are worth Buckley engaging in to help hit some of these pledge goals. Those donors are ones that gave in annual fund, the current annual fund, and the past year annual fund of 10K or more. There's 9 donors within that bucket. Donors who gave in the capital campaign in 2012, did not give in the capital campaign of 2014, but are currently giving in the annual fund. There are 67 of those donors who collectively gave $2.1 million to the capital campaign in 2012 and collectively are giving $220K to the annual fund. Lastly, Buckley's board members. Board members leave on an annual basis as their kids graduate Buckley, meaning new board members come on every year. And with new board members, there is an average expectation or an average projection of bringing in 25 to 100K in donations, either individually or through their network. And there's also opportunity to engage these board members' network to bring in new donors and new constituents to Buckley. There are also other alternatives to raise capital outside of just our constituent base, and that is through current revenue streams that Buckley has: the annual fund, the gala, and investment income. Annual fund averages $500K a year with a certain percentage given towards the capital campaign. We can maybe raise $2 million there. The gala averages $100K a year. If full amount were to go to the capital campaign, we could potentially see another $1 million. And then investment income averages about $73,000 a year, with a certain percentage of that income going to the capital campaign. We can project another $500,000. So about $3.5 million in revenue towards the capital campaign can be found in these alternative options if that risk were to be taken by Buckley. Speaking of risks, I think one of the biggest risks as Buckley moves forward with this campaign and as this data is presented and as our options or as our next step is presented is that those that are in control and at the head of this campaign may already have a deadline and date. Like I stated, this campaign has gone public, and it may not matter what data we are presenting to them today. They may just want to stick to whatever deadlines they had in mind when they decided to go public with this campaign. Another risk also is just the overall capacity of Buckley's donors. And really, with the decline in KPIs and some of these big pledges that Buckley is going to need to ask their donors to make, there is a risk that hitting a $10 million goal may not happen for Buckley during this capital campaign. But risk aside, bringing in the analysis of that gift table, really what we are needing from our donors to be successful, what other alternatives we have, and bringing in capital, who are the donors to really start engaging today, we are recommending that Buckley take the 13 years, 3 capital campaign approach. So right now, the 2018 launch would be for 5 years to raise $4 million to help build out the dining room area. And then after that is completed, the next 2 campaigns will support the build out of the parking lot. This also brings in that benefit of getting to hear constituents' feedback in between each campaign of what is going right, if they're willing to give again, if they didn't give in the prior year campaign, are they thinking of giving into this coming campaign, and helping to gauge if the new campaigns will be successful and what other alternatives would they need if there is some concern in the success of raising that capital. And that concludes our presentation. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to your questions.